Are the Democrats serious about inviting Marjorie Taylor Green over to the Democratic Party to gain another vote in the House? Sure sounds that way from Representative Jamie Raskin. Sometimes Legal AF makes the news. Sometimes we break the news. Representative Jamie Raskin, who is the ranking member on the House Judiciary Committee and is one of the leaders of the Democratic Party by far, gave a fiery speech to an assembled group of Democrats and independents in Miami. And we were there. We were there hosting it. We were there listening to it and in the room. And right in the middle of it, Representative Raskin invited Marjorie Taylor Green to join the party and to get another vote. I think you're going to love what Representative Raskin has to say. It's the momentum we need. It's the reinforcement we need. It's the encouragement we need right at the right time. And here's Representative Jamie Raskin appearing with Legal AF.
He represents Maryland's 8th congressional district, but he really represents all Americans and our democratic values. He's the ranking member on the House Judiciary Committee, and he's, of course, he was on the Jan 6 committee as well, the select committee to investigate Jan 6 attack. He's a professor of constitutional law and was at American University for over 25 years. He was in the state Senate in Maryland before that. And we could not do what we do as a party nationally if we didn't have Representative Jamie Raskin in the news, on television, doing the hard questioning and cross-examination during oversight hearings. And it's such an honor to be able to have him, right, Katie, here in Miami-Dade supporting what we're doing here.
Yeah, another thing that Jamie Raskin did was he was the lead impeachment manager. Oh, well, gosh. We were still introducing you, but it's fine now.
Keep going. Give it up for Representative Jamie Raskin.
Oh, what's he gonna do? You gonna get out?
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Katie.
Oh, what's he gonna do?
Thank you, you fine, beautiful Miami-Dade Democrats. Wow, what an honor and pleasure it is to be with you guys as we're fighting to take back the House in 2026 and the Senate in 2026. And we're going to win the governorship in Florida. We're going to win Attorney General in Florida. We're going to make it happen right here. We're going to win the mayor. We got the next mayor right here. Right here.
Sure.
Wow, and thank you for the beautiful weather. I could use that. You know, we get summer back in Maryland and DC too, but it's just kind of different. I like to say on Capitol Hill, it's not the heat, it's the stupidity. And we got plenty of that to go around. So we're here with all these fine local officials and state officials and some state senators. State Senator Jones is here, I think. I met some state Senate candidates, and it made me a little nostalgic thinking about the beginning of my career. I ran for the state Senate in 2006, and I ran against a 32-year incumbent who was the president pro tem of the Maryland Senate. And I tell you this story because, you know, everybody says the Florida Dems are down, but the Florida Dems are coming back. And this story is about that because when I first announced, there was an article in our local newspaper that said Raskin's chances of victory are considered impossible. Impossible running against this 32-year incumbent who was the boss of our local machine. 9 months later, we got 67% of the vote. And the Washington Post had another article about the race, quoting a pundit who said Raskin's victory was inevitable. So we went from impossible to inevitable in 9 months because the pundits are never wrong, right? And but I want you to know, and this is what I tell the young people in our Democracy Summer Project, in politics, nothing's impossible, nothing's inevitable. It's only possible through the democratic arts of education, organizing, mobilizing, galvanizing people for change. And that's why I'm here in Florida, because I know there's a fighting Democratic Party here. To be a Democrat in Florida, you got to know why you're a Democrat. You got to know what it is that you believe in. So I thought maybe let's start with this. Anybody here proud to be a Democrat? Anybody here proud of the Democrats in Virginia, New Jersey, New York, California, Mississippi, and Georgia? We won everywhere last Tuesday, everywhere. And the rest of the country, including Florida, is going to get its turn in 2026. And even before that, in the mayor's race, right here. Donald Trump said he wanted to squeeze 5 more House seats out of Texas, right? And they took out the House seats of my colleagues Henry Cuellar, Vicente Gonzalez, Al Green, Greg Casar, Julie Johnson, 3 Hispanic Americans, 1 African American, the first LGBTQ person ever elected to Congress from Texas. That's who they targeted. Those are the districts that they attempted to dismantle. And then I heard from some people saying, well, we can't do it back to them. 2 wrongs don't make a right. Okay, let's hear it for the people of California who passed Prop 50 and showed them exactly what it means to be a fighting Democrat in the 21st century. We tried to get rid of partisan redistricting for more than a decade. It was the first plank in the For the People Act to get rid of partisan redistricting. You remember it, Debbie Murkowski-Pell. We voted for that. We fought for that. And guess who voted for that? Every Democrat voted to get rid of partisan gerrymandering in America. And guess who voted against it? Every Republican. And then they decided it wasn't enough to be doing it every 10 years. They wanted to do it every 2 years in Texas. So it is not remotely moral or ethical to say we're going to unilaterally disarm in front of authoritarians who want to decide who's going to win the House of Representatives before a single vote is cast. Thank you, California. And we're going to do it all over the country to fight back wherever we can. And by the way, the destruction of the Voting Rights Act by the Roberts Court set the stage for this brutal MAGA gerrymandering. In 2013, in Shelby County versus Holder, they struck down the so-called pre-clearance requirement, which says in all the covered jurisdictions, you submit any changes to voting directly to the Department of Justice or to a federal district court. They got rid of that. They abolished that, which is why we have hundreds of new voting restrictions and voter suppression mechanisms all throughout the South and throughout the country, but especially in the Deep South. They throw people off the rolls if they miss one election. They throw people off the rolls for no reason at all. They have closed polling places, hundreds of polling places throughout the South. I was in Austin. They merged 2 polling places. There used to be 2 for where the students live at UT Austin. They closed one of them. They moved the other to the basement of a science lab or something like that. This is going on throughout the country. So they took down Section 5. There's no pre-clearance. Now in the Calais case out of Louisiana, they want to take down the rest of the Voting Rights Act in Section 2. The so-called non-retrogression component of the Voting Rights Act is there, meaning you can't turn the clock back. And if they win on that, as they may well do in this gerrymandered, stacked and packed Supreme Court under Donald Trump, well, then they're going to try to overturn more than a dozen other districts. The only thing that we can do is to fight back and organize everywhere, in every district. And that's how we're going to win. And then we're going to fight to defend the elections that we win. So, they've got no program to run on. We know that. I was at the State of the Union joint session when this nightmare started at the beginning of the year. And Donald Trump was there. And each of us gets to bring one guest with us. I brought a constituent named Lauren McGee, Dr. Lauren McGee, who's the chief biologist and doctor for pediatric cancer research at NIH, which is in my district. She was my guest. She'd been fired on February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day from Elon Musk. The Valentine's Day massacre. They fired her because she was on probation, right? And Trump figured that doesn't sound very good. It sounds like you knocked over a gas station or tried to steal an election or something like that. No, she was on probation because she'd been promoted with superior evaluations from below to become the head of the office. But anyway, she got fired. So I invited her to come to talk about what they were doing to all the medical investigation at NIH. You know, they've been trying to dismantle research into all of the killer diseases of our time. Cystic fibrosis, multiple sclerosis, breast cancer, colon cancer, malignant narcissistic personality disorder, all of them, right? So anyway, I brought her there, and Trump gets up and he's got Elon Musk. Trump starts out by saying, and I never heard it before and I never heard it since. It was eerie. He said, our number one priority is to wipe out childhood cancer in America. And I couldn't believe that. And I'm with the chief biologist of the childhood cancer research unit, and he's saying he's going to wipe out childhood cancer. Then he turns to introduce Elon Musk, and he says, Elon Musk, he's doing such a great job. You know, the first thing they did was they got rid of 17 inspectors general, the people whose real job it is to ferret out waste, fraud, corruption, abuse, and self-dealing, so Trump could put his people in and they could begin the process of plundering and looting the federal government. They've cost us billions of dollars. But anyway, he says, you know, Elon Musk is doing such a great job. Look at all this stuff he found. And he starts reading down the list. And then he says, he got rid of $9.5 million that they were spending at NIH to create transgender mice. And I was kind of alarmed by this, right? This didn't sound very good. $9.5 million to create transgender mice? Maybe there's something to this whole MAGA Doge thing after all. So I text my guest who's seated up in the gallery, and I said, did you guys spend $9.5 million on creating transgender mice? She writes back, this was debunked 2 weeks ago. There was a line item to create, for $9.5 million for the creation of transgenic mice, okay, which are mice injected with DNA so they can do research on breast cancer and leukemia and so on. We are being governed by morons, you know, and so then I say to her, do you want to go? I felt so ashamed, although I've got nothing to do with the guy, but I felt so ashamed that she came out. She's got to hear that their number one priority is to end childhood cancer. And then this lie about creating transgender mice. I said, you want to go? She goes, no, I want to see the rest of this. So we're sitting there for like 3.5 hours. It's interminable. It's like a Fidel Castro length speech Trump gives us. So finally, it's over. And we walk out. We go outside. Next thing you know, a car plows into the back of a parked police cruiser right outside of the Capitol. Wow. Who was that? Well, that was Speaker Mike Johnson's chief of staff who did that. He was drinking the entire time. Now, you can't blame him for that, okay? But he didn't have to get in his car and ram into a police cruiser. And so they open up the door, staggers out, they administer the breathalyzer. It's like, you know, 5,876,000,000 and everything. And Johnson immediately on the spot issues a statement. All will be forgiven. We're forgiving people. And he's a great soldier and everything. There's a reporter there who came up to me and said, you know, Congressman Raskin, what do you think about this? And I said, to me, it goes to show that there are way too many DUI hires in the new Republican administration, starting with Secretary Pete Hegseth. Okay, another DUI hire. My friends, every day I am proud to be a Democrat fighting for democracy and freedom and human rights in America. I'm proud to be a Democrat. Sometimes, you know, our colleagues across the aisle, they can't correctly pronounce the name of our party in its adjectival form. And And I mixed it up with my friend Lauren Boebert from Colorado about this. We were on the floor and she started this thing. A congresswoman spoke. I think it was maybe Nancy Pelosi. And then it was that Democrat congresswoman with her Democrat bill and her Democrat amendment. And this drives me crazy. And for 7 years, I would politely get up and I would say, actually, no, Democrat is the noun. Okay. Democratic is the adjective. You got to say the Democratic congresswoman, the Democratic bill. No, it was the Democrat. So I tried to correct her. Then they all piled on, like, Chip Roy is in there, Jim Jordan, all of them. Democrat this, Democrat that. They know it gets on my nerves. So I lost my temper and I got up. I said, you know what? You guys have this self-imposed political speech impediment. Okay. And it's contagious. It's coming over to our side. Now, whenever I try to say the name of your party, it just comes out the Banana Republican Party, the Banana Republican Congresswoman, the Banana Republican bill. And I went home and I told my wife and I said, Sarah, I finally got them back after all these years because I'm always complaining about, that. And you know what she said? She said, that was an extremely immature response. Okay. And now, but here's the lucky thing though. Okay. I was reading a great book at the time by H.W. Brands, the Texas historian, called Traitor to His Class, about Franklin D. Roosevelt. I learned something remarkable from that book. Roosevelt did not call our party the Democratic Party, much less the Democrat Party. Okay. He did what Andrew Jackson did. He called us the democracy with a capital D. He said the democracy. So he'd give a speech and he'd say, the economic royalists, the plutocrats say invest in the wealthiest people and corporations in America and let some of the wealth dribble down on everybody else. But the democracy says invest in the great American working middle class. We will all rise and prosper together. That's the doctrine of the democracy. So now, when they can't pronounce the name of our party, I say, just do what Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt did. Call us the democracy. That's what we are today. You know that, right? We're the only party in America that will stand up for everybody's right to vote. Even if you're not going to vote for us, we will stand up for your right. Here we are. We got 400 or 500 of the greatest activists in Florida politics, subject to every manner of disenfranchisement, voter suppression, gerrymandering. And have you ever been in a meeting with Democrats where somebody says, hey, how are we going to disenfranchise that community? How are we going to suppress the vote of those people over there? Democrats take the high road. We campaign based on our record and based on what we want to do. We don't try to strangle off the political opposition. And we stand up for democracy, not just in America, all over the world. We stand up for the people of Ukraine fighting off that filthy, imperialist, fascist invasion by Vladimir Putin. We are the democracy at this point. People all over the world are counting on the democracy at this point, on us to pull through. So I say to you, great Florida Democrats, it's not just about your being able to win. It's about us being able to win all over the country and all over the world, because democracy is under attack by the autocrats, the kleptocrats, the theocrats, and the plutocrats. And we're fighting that right here in America. Our Constitution, my friends, you know I'm the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee. Our Constitution's under attack every single day, right from the very start of it. I used to be a professor of constitutional law. One thing I never taught, shamefully, was the preamble. Because it's not law. You can't sue somebody under the preamble, but the preamble sets the whole thing out. And they're destroying it. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and preserve to ourselves and our posterity the blessings of liberty, do hereby ordain and establish the Constitution of these United States. And the very next sentence, all of that popular sovereignty that creates the Constitution and the country flows right into the first sentence of Article 1. All legislative power is vested in a Congress of the United States. Invested in a Congress. Okay. That's the lawmaking power. We've got the power to declare war. Not Donald Trump, not Tulsi Gabbard, not J.D. Vance, not their internet private chat group. They don't have the right to declare war. It's us. Why? Because the framers understood that kings were constantly plunging their countries into petty wars of conceit and vanity and imperial plunder. And they said something as serious as life and death must be reposed in the hands of the representatives of the people. We've got the power to impose taxes and tariffs, not Donald Trump. It's always been Congress under Article 1. There's the power of the purse. He's the first president ever to try to impose tariffs on foreign countries. He has no power to do so in the Constitution. Presidents only get it from Congress. We didn't give him that power. He makes up tariffs as a matter of pure whimsy. He said, he's gonna, he'll put 100% tariff on this country, 50% tariff on that country, 40% tariff on that country. That's not how it's done. He's putting tariffs on countries where we have major trade surpluses, right? So we'll see if the Supreme Court, if the Roberts Court this time can act like a real court and restore the Constitution there. Article 1, you go all the way through Article 1, you get to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, and all other powers necessary and proper to the execution of the foregoing powers, right? Sometimes people say, even my beloved Nancy Pelosi, I've heard her say this. I've had to disagree with her about this and probably only this. And I've said, they get up and they say, we're co-equal branches. They're repeating this 5th grade dogma, right? We're co-equal branches. Well, first of all, co-equal is not even a word, okay? That word doesn't exist. That's like extremely unique or something like that. Okay? That's not a real word. Are we equal branches? Well, let's see. We've got the entire lawmaking power because we overthrew a king, and our framers wanted to put power in the hands of Congress. Well, what is the president's job? Well, sometimes people say commander-in-chief. Yeah, commander-in-chief, not of the nation, not of the government, commander-in-chief of the army and the navy and the militias in times of actual service. So what's the president's core job? Read Article 2. By the way, the biggest part of Article 2 is the paragraph which says, a president shall be removed from office upon impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. Okay, now, if we're co-equal branches, why do we have the power to impeach, try, convict, remove, and disqualify for life the president, and he doesn't have the power to do the same to us, right? Okay, what's the core job of the president? Very easy. To take care that the laws are faithfully executed. That's it. To take care that the laws are faithfully executed. Not warped, not deformed, not distorted, not rejected, not impounded, not misdirected, not redirected. Take care that the laws are faithfully executed. Or as I told Donald Trump at the Democratic convention, to take care that the laws are faithfully executed, not that the vice president is executed. You remember back to January 6, 2021. It is the role of the courts to enforce the boundaries among the branches and then to defend the rights of the people. Chief Justice Marshall says in Marbury versus Madison, it's emphatically the province and the duty of the courts to say what the law is. No, J.D. Vance, it's not up to President Trump to define what the powers of the presidency are. We'll take care of that. Thank you, Mr. Vance. A Yale Law School wasted on education, wasted on him, obviously. But look, my friends, all of this is really for protecting the rights of the people. It's about the people. And every part of the Bill of Rights is under attack right now. The freedom of speech. Donald Trump is personally suing ABC, CBS, NBC, 60 Minutes, BBC. I think he sued over the weekend. Why? He doesn't like something they said about him. That is the First Amendment. That's what the freedom of speech is. But he's armed with the Federal Communications Commission. He's got the FCC holding up people's licenses, holding up their transfers, holding up their mergers, unless they cooperate with his shakedown. It's a scandalous assault on freedom of speech. The Associated Press got banned from the White House. Why? Because they insisted on calling the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of Mexico. You've got the right to tell the truth under the First Amendment, right? You can speak your mind, but you certainly have the right to tell the truth under the First Amendment. Everything's under attack. The separation of church and state, under attack. When my colleagues got up on the floor not long ago, he says, the moral downfall of America was in 1962 in Engel versus Vitale, when the Supreme Court banned prayer in the public schools. And I got up and I said, you know what? The Supreme Court never banned prayer in the public schools. As long as there are pop math quizzes, there will be prayer in the public schools. Anybody can pray whenever he or she wants to pray. All the court said was the government cannot produce a script and compel your children to participate in it. Okay? That's what the court said. It doesn't end with these people. You saw Texas and Louisiana. Last month, they voted to endorse the 10 Commandments and post the 10 Commandments in every school classroom. They didn't say which 10 Commandments because there are about 50 different versions of it that you can find online. But anyway, I knew it was going to happen. My MAGA colleagues show up and they say, well, now it's time for us to endorse the 10 Commandments. We need to post the 10 Commandments in Congress and in the federal buildings. I said, gee, you know, the 10 Commandments have been doing fine for millennia without an endorsement by the House of Representatives and the Freedom Caucus. No, this one guy says to me, you know, the 10 Commandments are the basis for the Bill of Rights. And I got confused, you know, I was like, well, I do know there's 10 in each one. Let me think about that for a second. Let's test the proposition. The first commandment says, thou shalt have no other God before me. The First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Okay? How does the First Commandment dictate the First Amendment? We go to the Rules Committee. They want an up or down vote, all 10 commandments. I said, you know what? If we're going to vote on the 10 commandments in 2025, we should vote on each commandment separately, okay? Not the omnibus package they're trying to get away with. And in truth, you shouldn't be able to vote for any commandment you yourself have ever violated, okay? You'll be taking the name of the Lord in vain in violation of the third commandment. One of them says you're making a mockery of the whole thing. I said, you know what? You guys are making a mockery out of the whole thing. Your legislation is not only unconstitutional, it's blasphemous at the same time. Like, let's maintain the separation of church and state, but it doesn't end with these people. Due process under attack every day in America, right? Masked men in unmarked cars making warrantless arrests of people in our communities. They've declared war on cities in America. They've created like war zones throughout America. One guy on the floor says to me, well, you're not saying you support due process for guilty people, are you? And I'm like, that's the whole point. Okay, we don't know if they're guilty until there's been due process. That's why we've got due process in America. So, anyway, look. Let me just say a couple more things, you great Florida Democrats. One of them is we are a big tent. We must be a huge, vast tent. I say this is a party that's got room for Marjorie Taylor Green if she wants to come over. We got room for anybody who wants to stand up for the Constitution and for the Bill of Rights today. One of my colleagues who left from South Carolina, Trey Gowdy, said to me on the way out, he said, you know, Raskin, you're not a bad guy. The problem with you is you're a liberal. I said, you're damn right I'm a liberal. The heart of that word is liberty. And I'm a progressive because the heart of that word is progress. But my favorite thing to call myself today is a conservative because I want to conserve the land, the air, the water, the climate system, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the National Labor Relations Act, the Fair Labor Standards Act, the Voting Rights Act, Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, everything that party of authoritarians wants to destroy is everything we're going to conserve and defend in America. We are the party of the conservatives, the liberals, and the progressives. All the patriots today are in the party of democracy. That's who we are. I'll leave you, my friends, with the words of some of the great democracy patriots and heroes I've kept so close to my heart through this difficult time. Frederick Douglass, who was born, just about 40 minutes away from my home in Maryland on the Wye River Plantation. He was born into slavery. He escaped from slavery to become our great freedom fighter through the Civil War, through Reconstruction. And Douglass said, if there's no struggle, there's no progress. And the struggle may be moral, it may be physical, it may be moral and physical, but there must be struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. A message to you from Frederick Douglass and the people of Maryland. Thomas Jefferson, he got a letter from a friend of his, John Taylor, in 1798, at the time of the Alien and Sedition Acts, which have suddenly come back into vogue in the Trump administration, but this guy wrote him and he said, I can't believe we're in the same country that just had a revolution against tyranny and autocrats. And now they're rounding up newspaper editors. They're arresting dangerous, subversive Frenchmen on the streets. And he said, what's going on? And I'm losing hope. And Jefferson wrote him back this beautiful letter. And he said, a little patience, and the reign of witches shall pass over. Their spells dissolve, and the people recovering their true sight recover the true principles of their government. In the meantime, we're suffering all of the horrors and malignities of this dark time. But if the game runs against us sometimes, said Jefferson, we must have patience, because this is a game where principles are at stake. A message to you from Thomas Jefferson, and I'll leave you with the words of the great Tom Paine, who got over here in 1774. And he fell in love with the promise of America. He said, if this land lives up to its values and ideals, it will become an asylum to humanity, he said. Not an insane asylum, mind you, but a place of refuge for people seeking freedom from political and religious and intellectual persecution from all over the world. And he wrote the great pamphlet of our history, Common Sense, which ignited the American Revolution.
Welcome back. If you like this kind of content, we bring on the Congress people, the senators, the judges, the former judges, the attorneys general, the public interest groups, the ACLU, all along with our own legal commentary led by me, Michael Popok, here on Legal AF. If you like what we're doing, here's all you got to do. Check the subscribe button. Make sure you're already a subscriber. Hit the button. We are going to hit 1 million subscribers in our 1 year on Earth before, I believe, Christmas. At the rate we're going, we're going to hit 950,000 this weekend. Hit the subscribe button now. Come over to Legal AF Substack and help us continue to build that community as well. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.